In a small town with a haunted library, one college student went looking for a story and became one. This town, nestled in the heart of nowhere, had always been shrouded in mystery. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones about the library, a place where the past seemed to linger in the air, thick and palpable. The library, with its creaking floors and dusty shelves, was a relic of a bygone era, a place where time itself seemed to stand still. In a small, dimly lit town, there stood a worn-out library, whispered to be haunted. The building, with its Gothic architecture and ivy-covered walls, looked like something out of a horror novel. The windows, long since clouded with grime, seemed to watch passers-by with a silent, eerie gaze. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old books and something else, something unidentifiable but unmistakably sinister. Jamie, a college student with a knack for the occult, decided to spend a night there. She was drawn to the library by the stories she had heard, tales of ghostly apparitions and books that moved on their own. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of adventure, she stepped into the darkened building, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She laughed off the rumors about midnight spirits reclaiming their lost stories. To her, it was all just a bit of fun, a way to pass the time and maybe find some inspiration for her next paper. She wandered through the aisles, running her fingers along the spines of the books, feeling the weight of history in her hands. But as the clock struck 12, Jamie heard shuffling paper. She turned around. Nothing. The sound was faint at first, like the rustling of leaves in the wind, but it grew louder, more insistent. She spun around, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, but there was no one there. The sound grew louder. Then silence. The library seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with anticipation. Jamie stood still, her heart pounding in her chest, straining to hear any other sounds. But there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of the empty library. She sighed, chalking it up to imagination, until she felt an icy breath on her neck. It was as if someone or something was standing right behind her, breathing down her neck. She whipped around, her flashlight beam dancing wildly, but again there was nothing there. Whipping around, she saw only shadows cast by flickering lights. The lights, which had been steady moments before, now flickered erratically, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. Jamie's mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. A book lay open on the floor. It wasn't there before, she was sure of it. She had walked past that spot just moments ago and there had been no book there. She approached it cautiously, her flashlight illuminating the pages. She picked it up and heard a whisper. "That's my story." The voice was faint, almost a sigh, but it was unmistakable. Jamie's heart pounded in her chest as she looked around, but there was no one else in the library. Her heart pounded, but she shook it off. She told herself it was just her imagination, that she was letting the spooky atmosphere get to her, but deep down, she knew something was very wrong. Determined not to let fear win, she read the book's title. She held the book up to her flashlight, squinting to make out the words in the dim light. The Last Story of Jamie Richards, her full name. The shock hit her like a physical blow. How could this be? She had never seen this book before, and yet here it was, with her name on the cover. She dropped the book, heart racing. Suddenly, every book in the library fell open. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of pages rustling and covers thudding against the floor. Pages flipped furiously, echoing a single word. Stay. The words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing off the walls and reverberating in her mind. Jamie sprinted to the exit, but the doors wouldn't budge. She threw herself against them, but they were solid, unyielding. Panic set in as she realized she was trapped. She screamed, pounding on them until her fists bled. The pain was sharp, but it was nothing compared to the terror that gripped her heart. Behind her, whispers turned into a deafening roar. Finish the story. The words were a command, a demand that she couldn't ignore. She turned back to the library, her mind racing. The next morning, the librarian found Jamie's notebook on the floor, her last entry reading. They write the ending. The words were scrawled in a shaky hand, the ink smudged as if written in a hurry. No one ever saw Jamie again. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only her notebook and the mystery of what had happened to her. Some say if you listen closely on a silent night, you can still hear her whispers, trapped between the pages. The library remains a silent sentinel to the past, holding its secrets close. And Jamie's story, like so many others, is now just another whisper in the dark.